questions up there. So, first of all, I want you to know that I completely understand that rejection is real. I completely understand that it's real, and a lot of people will tell you like, you just need to get over it, but you don't know how high mine is. So getting over what you've been through isn't as easy or maybe more difficult than somebody else getting over what he or she has been through. And for some reason, the devil has found a way to make rejection a constant companion. Like there is no place on earth you can go where rejection doesn't follow you, right? Like there are other problems that if you change your environment, then that thing may go away. But rejection will follow you into every relationship. It'll follow you to every job. Listen, it'll follow you to every church. And a lot of us try to run away from it, not recognizing that rejection has an unlimited bus pass. It can go to any city. It can get on any plane. It can get on any train. It can get in any automobile. And when you try to solve rejection by changing your circumstances, you soon find out that it goes nowhere because it's in you. And when you arrive at the new location, you are there. So I tell people this all the time. That's why change has to start at the behavior level, or the thought level, I should say, not the behavior level. It starts at the thought level because everywhere you go, there you are. And if you don't change your thoughts will be wherever you arrive. Okay, so you have to change the way you think. So rejection, it does two things. And correct me if I'm wrong, and we can have a conversation. It makes you feel insignificant, and it also makes you feel insecure. One of the things that I find out is that people are not often honest about being insecure. We want to pretend that we are solid, that what people think about us doesn't matter, and how people view us doesn't matter, and we're good. But there are a lot of people in the world who are insecure. The inner you is unstable about how people perceive you. Jesus almost showed us that it is important that we know what other people think about us. So when people say, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, you're not like Jesus. Jesus went to the disciples and said, who do men, come on y'all, who do men say that I am? Their response, some say thou art John the Baptist. Some say you're Jeremiah. Some say that you're Elijah or one of the other prophets. Then he says, Peter, well, who do you say that I am? And then, well, he's talking to the disciples. Peter's the only one that speaks up. And Peter says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. That shows me that you can be something that most people will not identify. Because the only person who knew or who expressed that he was the Son of God was Peter. He was trying to be the Son of God to all of them. But let me tell you something. People will not always recognize your efforts. They don't always recognize what you're trying to do. They don't always recognize it. Why? Because we all have been trained. We've all been trained to perceive love and admiration and security in one way. And the problem with most people is that we have not yet figured out that we should not love people based on how we want to be loved. We should love people based on how they receive love. And so most of us do for people what we want them to do for us. But the problem is if they have no desire for that, then you have loved them wrong. Okay? A woman to tell you right now, when you're going through something, I want a purse, but not now. Don't bring me no gift. I need an apology. Come on. I need change. I need some movement. I'm not a person you're not going to make me forget what happened because you bought me some shoes. Okay? You need to affirm me with words. You need to affirm me with physical touch. You need to affirm me with acts of service. And we all are in that vicious cycle of trying to give what we want to receive. But sometimes most times, you have to give how they receive. And then you have to figure out how I receive. And then you have to give to me on that level. Are you all with me so far? So maybe the rejection came because your parents got a divorce when you were kids. And you went from getting bedtime stories to having weekend visitations. So you may not have known that that bothered you, but imagine for the first 10 years of your life, your father's coming in your room and he's giving you a bedtime story and you're praying together, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's just you and mom in the house. Subconsciously that affects you, I don't care how strong you are. Or some of you all are insecure because your parents shouldn't have been together, but they stayed together for you. And they should have asked you. You could have told them, I know y'all don't like each other. Hurry up and get this over with. Or maybe you had a friend that you trusted and all of a sudden they turned on you. Who's been through that? Right? So there are a lot of things that can cause rejection and insecurity. Maybe somebody you trusted betrayed you. Anybody ever been betrayed by anybody? And then you tried to trust again, and guess what happened this time? It happened all over again. So there are a multiplicity of ways that rejection can set in. And some of us, let's be honest, some of us you can even be angry with people who died like they could help it. I've seen people angry with people because they left them when they were not ready. You left me with these children, or you left me with this, or you left me with that. There are a multiplicity of reasons that rejection can set in. But I wanted to talk about a text today that really begs the question as to why we are so concerned with what people think on the backdrop of the fact that we have a Father that redeemed our souls. Everybody who has a Bible, go to Titus chapter 2, verse 14. Titus chapter 2, verse 14. Not you, Titus. Don't be raising your hand. He back there talking about, I'm back here. No. Titus chapter 2, verse 14. Who gave himself for us, that he might what? Redeem us from what? All iniquity, and purify unto himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. First of all, God just flat out through Paul called you strange. That's what the word peculiar means. So God says, I gave myself for you strange, crazy people. You're zealous, you have a desire, but you're strange, you're weird, you got your ways, and you don't know it, which is why I had to give myself for you. I had to purify you of your impurities. I had to redeem you. I had to buy you back. Now, and I'm going somewhere, and I'm going to ask some questions, or answer some questions, I should say. When you go back and look at slave times, what would happen is a slave master, or a slaver, as he's called, he will go up. Now imagine all of you all are slaves, and he would go and he would peruse, and he would look at people to see if they were fit. And he would just look over them, looking at flesh. This is what a slaver would do. And so the auctioneer would be paying attention to the eyes of the slaver, and the moment he got his eyes on somebody and he looked like they were going to be worth the time, the auctioneer would see him set his eyes on the slave, and all of a sudden he would start the price, $300. He would start automatically. Now, what the slaver would do, listen to this, is that it's a known fact that when a slaver would go to a slave to see if he wanted to purchase the slave, one of the things he would do is he would start to physically abuse the slave right on the spot. He would start to beat the slave and start to hit the slave to see how much punishment it could take, or he could take, or she could take. Now, that's the original language as it relates to slavery. Everybody say slavery. I'm going somewhere with this. It's going to make sense in a minute. Everybody say slavery. So the reason why we're using that word redeem, because it means to purchase. So we're talking about slaves. So when you would redeem, or when you would purchase a slave, you would purchase that person for the purpose of keeping them enslaved. Jesus comes, according to Paul, and now says there is no more bond or servant. Eradicates slavery, watch this, but then asks us to become a bond servant. So now we're actually saved by grace. We're still slaves of God, but we're bond servants. He didn't purchase us, he redeemed us. So when he redeems us, watch this. Now what he's saying, Brother Keith, is I'm buying you as a slave, but I don't intend to keep you as a slave. I am purchasing you so that I can set you free. Are you listening to me so far? This is sound doctrine. Everybody say sound doctrine. So one slave owner buys the slave to enslave them. Jesus comes and says, I'm purchasing you for the purposes of freeing you. So that way you are no longer a slave. You're no longer enslaved to sin. You're no longer enslaved by rejection. You're no longer enslaved by what somebody said. You're no longer enslaved by somebody else's opinion. And what happens is a lot of us don't recognize that we continue to preach that we want to be free, but yet we have the behavior of slavery. That no matter what the price is that Jesus Christ paid for us, we have a tendency to crawl back into the dungeon of other people's opinions in our past. And then we take cues from our past, which infuses and informs our future, which leaves us insignificant and insecure. And most of the things that you do not believe that you can achieve, or what you believe about yourself, it does not come from personal failure. It comes from personal conversation. What somebody told you, what somebody said, what has been repeated over and over and over and over in your head. And now here you are, as I like to say, you are now locked in a room, but the door is wide open. Could you imagine? Now, I don't know what you would do. Let me tell you what I would do. If all of the bars opened on the prison one night, and I know some of y'all good Christians. You're going to stay right in this cell and say, nope, I'm going to stay here because they ain't going to do nothing but come get us anyway. And if they come and get us, there's another group that's going to be like, well, I'm going to go for it. And they're going to have to catch me. Amen. Now, how many of y'all are in the they're going to have to catch me crowd? Raise your hand. I figured I had the right church today. All right. That's right. I'm going to preach this sermon for real now because I kind of got nervous. I thought, how many of y'all will stay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You will stay. He like, I've been before, bro. That ain't no good idea. You want to stay. You want to stay in. I think that what I've just showed you is how there are people in the world who have the mentality not to run no matter what the option is. Don't get out even if it looks like the coast is clear. Just stay in because this is where I belong, or I don't have the money to get out, or I don't have the connect. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to stay inside of it. And when he used the word redemption, he used the Greek word lutro, which gives the idea of a person who paid a very high price to attain something. Let me tell you something. You were worth dying for. God thought you were so important that he gave up Jesus. You were worth Jesus to God. Can you settle down and think about that? Because he owns all the silver and the gold. He could have paid it. You mean so much to me that I'm going to become what I'm not so that you don't be what you are. Did you get what I said? He who what? Knew no sin became sin. I'm going to become what I can't be, but I never will be, to ensure that you no longer are and what you shall forever be. So he leaves heaven so that you can come to heaven. He comes to earth so you don't have to stay on earth. And the reason why he has to do that is because since you were made of earth, then earth should have been your home. Remember, when he created the Garden of Eden, there would have been no need for heaven because we were in paradise. We were created to stay on earth. And yet human beings have not yet recognized that we are rejected by the world, not rejected by God, and yet we cannot hear him. And I want you to understand that rejection was planted in the garden. The snake comes in and tells Adam and Eve that no matter what God said, you need to go check that out. You need to go look at that. When the truth of the